Hey you guys, I wanted to talk to you for a minute about the germ theory of disease today. It's part of the basic assumption that is behind the modern medical system. And it's the idea that there are these microorganisms in the outside environment, right? And if you have bad luck or something like that, I don't know what else would cause it. They go into your body, and it's called an infection, right? It sounds really bad. It means that these outside organisms get inside your body, and their function is to make you miserable and make you sick and kill you if they can. It's a pretty ridiculous system, but that's what they really believe is happening. And so they get into your body, and you go to the doctor if you believe in this whole system, and the doctor gives you antibiotics or something else to kill the germs, and then you get rid of the infectious disease. Or if you're really thinking ahead, you go to the doctor before you get the disease and you get a shot, and that's supposed to prevent you from getting the disease. Of course, that doesn't usually work. In fact, it often gives you the disease or hurts you in other ways, or it might kill you, but that's okay because it's modern cutting-edge science. So this is all based on the germ theory of disease. Germs including viruses, bacteria, and other kinds of organisms whose job it is to come and hurt you. Very strange idea of how nature works. No feeling of the harmony in the whole system. And a lot of this came from Pasteur, Louis Pasteur, who was a French chemist. And he was looking through the microscope and he saw these little tiny organisms, and he saw tissue from a person with a certain disease, and he said, aha, these organisms cause that disease. And even, modern science is smart enough to say, well, wait a minute, correlation is not necessarily causation. So just because you see those things together does not mean the germs cause the disease. It's like if you see an animal on the highway that got run over by a car and it's dead, and there are vultures around eating the body of the animal. And you say, aha, the vultures killed the animal. This would be about just as intelligent as saying the germs cause the disease. The germs are there, but they're not necessarily what the lawyers would call the proximal cause. They're just part of the effect of whatever was the original cause. So at the same time as Pasteur, there was another scientist named Béchamp, not nearly as well known, also in France, I think. And he had a different theory. Maybe it'll come back to my mind what it's called. It starts with a Z. But anyway, his theory, Béchamp's theory, was that the tissues are the more proximal cause. In other words, if the tissues are weak or sick or diseased, then that changes the function of microorganisms that are already in your body. They're not suddenly breaking in from the outside. And I think he was right, because your body is not only has some microorganisms already in it, which technically could be called infections, that you already have thousands of infections all the time. That would be more honest. But the function of they're like 90% of the cells in your body are these microorganisms. They're not even human cells. And you need them to stay healthy and in good shape. So going in and killing all of them indiscriminately is not really brilliant. It's a part of the medical business model that leads to other diseases, that leads to more profit, that leads to sick people, and on like that. So Béchamp was saying that it's the sick tissues that change the function of the microorganisms that are already in your body. And they start breaking down diseased tissue, and sometimes their byproducts are corrosive and caustic and further harmful. So killing them kind of covers up the immediate crisis in some cases, but it certainly doesn't take care of the problem. And if that approach to disease is taken, the person is still subject to getting sick or degenerating, or both. So the point is that the germ theory is being promoted as a way to sell drugs, basically, for the medical drug dealers. Or it's, in the letter I just wrote to someone who asked me about this, I was talking about killing the germs, but the other thing is that then degeneration starts. The joints stop working, or the eyesight stops working, heart disease comes, and it's not a separate disease. It's a sign of a system-wide problem. And yeah, there's all kinds of microorganisms involved, but they're not the original cause. It kind of reminds me of if you live out in the country and you have cats who live outside and you leave their food out overnight. In a lot of areas of the country, you'll have skunks come to eat the cat food because it's free food. And then you get all upset because skunks came in and they're eating the cat food, and you might get sprayed, and they could spray your cats and, make problems for you. Well, you left the cat food out, okay? It's not the fault of the skunks. And it's not an exact analogy, because the microorganisms that are helping you in the body, according to Béchamp, change their function. I can tell you they also change their balance, because they multiply or decrease based on what is needed for them to do. They're very diligent workers, very inspirational, actually. They're conscious, wide awake. They're not just things. Yeah, you look at one under a microscope, a single cell even, and you can see it acting just like an aware, conscious being, even though it's only one cell. And this idea that only humans are conscious is really dumb. And it's fully embraced by so-called science at this point. That will eventually change if we can survive, the attempted suicide of the planet, but that's another story. What I'm trying to say here is that if you don't want to have degeneration in your body, if you don't want to have microorganisms starting to digest your body like it's time to be composted, then take care of it. A lot of these things are not too complex. They're not. No disrespect to rocket scientists intended here. I'm sure that's very complex and great business, as long as you're not using it to blow up the world offensively. But this is not rocket science. This is like getting back your common sense. And if you put good building blocks in your body to build strong tissues, and you don't put in garbage, if you put the good necessary building blocks in your body to make strong tissue, which has to be renewed and rebuilt all the time. You're not just a static structure. Most parts of your body are not very old at all. They're being rebuilt all the time. So if they seem to age, it's because the rebuilding, the materials and the functions for rebuilding are not keeping pace with the old parts wearing out. And that looks like aging. That's why I'm saying it's not necessary in the form that we're used to it in at all. Really not. I mean, I'd like to wait 30 years and tell you when I'm 100, but I have to give you a hint about it now and not wait 30 years. It's really true. You can control your rate of aging to a great degree between what you do physically and your thought and emotional patterns. Those are really critical. So the idea is, you don't put stuff in your body like processed food, meat, and I know this will get all kinds of people hating me for saying this, but there's no ego in this. I'm just telling you my observation and that of other people. There are many reasons that humans are not suited to eat any kind of meat, fish, chicken, anything, paleo notwithstanding. If you're a carnivore, the natural way to eat meat is to kill the animal yourself and eat it raw on the spot, rip out its guts and eat the organs and everything, and of course have no empathy for the horror and suffering you're causing for your victim. Natural carnivores don't have empathy for their prey at all, otherwise they'd starve to death. So as a human, you got to shut off your empathy if you're going to eat meat, and the only natural way is to eat it raw and just dying, unless you're a vulture or something, which most of you I don't think are. And that's a natural way to eat meat. But if humans try to do that, they might survive and they might die. It's dangerous and tricky eating raw meat. Some people seem to do okay. Others that I know of have died from it. So I'm not recommending it for many reasons. Your gut's too long, your teeth are wrong, your consciousness is wrong, you're not designed to be a predator. If you are, it's fine. I don't hate predators or anything. I'm just trying to help you with some ideas here. So if you get away from meat, especially get away from processed food, even if you're going to keep eating meat, eat only organic meat as close to brand new as possible, not aged and semi-rotten. That's really a bad idea. And don't eat processed food or drink of any kind. And this is if you don't want the microorganisms in your body to start digesting you. Okay, and that's another reason not to eat meat. The real carnivores have stomach acid that can digest bones. Unless you're a carnivore like a dog or a cat or a snake listening to this, you probably don't have stomach acid like that. Okay, I'm sorry. I know you may wish you did, but you don't. So you have to learn about what your body's designed for. However, I don't agree with the vegans. I think the China study is deeply flawed. The milk that they used in that study, there's a lot of things they did that don't go with real life. Organic raw milk, there's a reason that the government wants to eradicate it from the country and some other places, but especially the US. It's not because they like you so much. That's not why they make those kind of laws. It's because it's a superfood and they don't want you having access to it. And I was a vegan eating raw and cooked food, and then I was a raw vegan for quite a while, and I was having problems with weakness and being cold all the time and no energy and psychologically kind of weird and paranoid, unbalanced. I've seen that in lots of raw vegans. Matt Monarch made a great video about it, by the way. He recognized it even as a raw vegan of decades in his case. So for some reason, even though I think the most appealing food philosophy to me that's simple and beautiful is just live on fruit, but I tried that too, and I've never met anybody that actually worked for without becoming a scarecrow, really frail and saying, oh, the energy's just really high. No, it isn't. You're just really frail and you're not solid anymore, and you need to get that back. So for most people, for whatever reason in this particular time, saturated fat and cholesterol in the right form are really helpful, maybe necessary for most people. Certainly in my case, it helped me get my muscle mass back, my energy back, my clarity of mind back. I don't feel unstable psychologically at all. It's been very important. But I agreed with the vegans. I didn't want to kill animals to get what I needed to eat, because I don't differentiate between your pet dog and the wild animal that you're killing to eat in the forest. They're both living, emotionally aware beings, and personally I'm tied into them enough. I don't want to cause them distress. So how am I going to get the saturated and fat and cholesterol? Well, I trust government. I told you that before. I trust them implicitly. They're not going to say something is really bad for you unless it's probably essential for your health and well-being. They're quite reliable. You have to test, because they may tell the truth by mistake at some point or for some other reason, either by accident or for another agenda. So you have to check it out. But with raw milk, I think it's reliable. They say you should never eat it or it will kill you. That means it's really a superfood. I tried it out. It took about, several months for my gut bacteria to readjust so that I could digest it well with no congestion or anything like that. But my theory that would go away was true. I've been using it for years now. I have no problem from it. I never get sick. I mean, I could get sick tomorrow, but I don't even remember how long ago it was that I got sick. It was a long time. So my point is, talking about the germ theory for this video, and I'm sorry I've gone so long, but it's that if you put things in your body by eating and drinking them, or maybe smoking them if you're unwise enough to do that, and smoking is really stupid, whether it's cigarettes or marijuana or anything, you really don't want to do that. Your lungs are designed for fresh air, not particles. It's going to turn the inside of your lungs black, and that's not what you want to do. Okay, but anyway, if you take in things that way, or drugs, including medical drugs, recreational drugs, whatever, or processed food, pesticide residues, never eat anything that's not organic or better. You eat conventional, should read poison, not conventional. Okay, so if you put in that stuff, your body's pretty resilient, but gradually over the years, it's going to start breaking down from that stuff, and you'll also be subject to infectious diseases. So that's the bottom line about the germ theory, of these infections just roaming around in the wild waiting to attack you. That's not a very realistic picture at all. I mean, the the people that work in these labs that weaponize viruses like Ebola and other things that CDC has a patent on, those are to hurt you, okay? And they are in the environment, and they hope that you'll breathe them in and get hurt or killed. But in nature, that is not the biggest danger. It's your body's full of microorganisms all the time. And for them to have their correct function, you have to give them the right raw materials to work on. And then they'll say, oh, this is a healthy person. We don't need to destroy them. Nature is in harmony like that, okay? It's not like there's these organisms whose job it is to make your life miserable and kill you. But you have to follow the laws of nature in your own daily habits and your eating and drinking and everything. So learn what those are, okay? That it is in your hands. You're not just sitting here helpless like the experts want you to think, that if you have bad luck and the wrong germ gets you, you've had it, or if you have the wrong genetics, you have to start cutting off your body parts and just pray that you don't have the genetics for brain cancer, right? They'll have to cut off your head to save you. It's so stupid. It's almost all in your hands. Maximize the cleaning of your environment. Don't use toxic chemicals to clean your house. Don't put toxic sunscreens and perfume and shampoo and stuff on your body, because it goes right through your skin into your body, and then you're subject to these infectious diseases and the degeneration and the cancer. And Mike Adams has been doing a great series on cancer. You should watch it. It's on naturalnews.com. Almost all these things can be reversed and prevented, and you don't have to be a helpless victim like the medical industry wants you to think. It's not true. So yeah, there are microorganisms out there. Their purpose is not to hurt you. When they see that you are hurting yourself and you're putting garbage in your body, and the best is organic, whole, raw food, okay? That's just how it is. I'm sorry if that's different than people's cultural and social habits or lifelong attachment or something, but biologically, all the animals, and humans too, are designed to eat 100% organic, fresh, whole, raw food. If you feed animals cooked food and processed garbage like in the commercial dog food and everything, that's what keeps the veterinarian business going. And it keeps the medical doctors going when you do it. And it keeps the germ theory believable. So disprove the germ theory. Take care of yourself. You won't have to worry about it. But you got to learn about it in detail. So start studying. Really do your work. If you're going to try existing on the physical plane, this thing they call the real world, you got to learn how it works. Because if you don't, you're going to get blindsided and believe stuff like the germ theory and that you're helpless and you have to have your organs cut out and all this nonsense. Learn. Do it on your own. Do it with a friend. Or join us at Planetary Healing Club. LostArtsRadio.com/club if you want to know about that. No obligation. You can quit that at any time. But I'm going to be there in person every week, Saturday nights, to share everything that I've learned with you over more than 50 years of research into this kind of thing. Physical health, laws of nature, deeper tools of consciousness. It all goes together. And I'm showing up there once a week to share it with you. If you want to be there, it makes more sense than, in most cases, my private consulting time is too expensive for most people. And I'll actually be there, and you can do it once a week, and it's all interactive. It's pretty neat now. It's helped a lot of people. It does have small dues, but they're put to a good use. They all go to the nonprofit. And if we get enough, which with the dues being as tiny as they are, we'd need thousands of people. But if we get them, the nonprofit can build the school, and then we can demonstrate this stuff, and you can experience it in person firsthand at the actual site. That's really what I'd personally like to do. I'd like to be living there and running it, keeping it on track. And we're not going to do anything hype or anything to raise money for it. So it's only going to be from club dues, and if we run into some amazing benevolent billionaire or something that wants to support it and show people you don't have to fall apart like you're being told. Until and unless we can afford to do that, we're going to do it through the club and on these videos and on our online shows. You can keep track of all of them on lostartsradio.com. And I know you're really busy and you've got a lot of other interesting things to do and important things to take care of in your life. So thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time. I really appreciate it. Honored to get to talk with you. And I'll see you next time.